Hey guys, welcome back to another video here at the shop. Right in front of me I have this interesting piece of wood that I picked up at a wood store over in Oregon about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. It's called Makamong Burl. I'd never heard of it before, but it looks really interesting. It's definitely really cool. It kind of reminds me of Buckeye Burl. That's why I picked it up. And I got it for a pretty good deal because it's full of wormholes. I don't know if you could tell, but the whole thing is just covered in wormholes. It's really not usable right now because of how soft and wormy it is. So enough talking, let's go ahead and get into the process of it, and I hope you enjoy the video. All right, so the first thing I want to do is to square this thing up. You can see I have a line drawn here, another line over here, and then a line that goes through the middle. I'm going to cut these ends off to have a flat edge here. This end is going to sit up against this wall of the mold. And then same thing with that side. I have a divider here that wherever that ends up, I'll put that divider in. And then also this line through the middle, I'm going to cut that. This flat edge on the bottom is going to sit against this side, and then this is going to go down this way, and we'll adjust the size of the mold as we go. This mold is just MDF with Tyvek sheathing tape. The epoxy won't stick to that, and it's a lot cheaper than trying to make a silicone mold or something. So this is actually a really cheap way of making molds. All right, we cut a lot of this away. We have nice flat edges. So we're gonna shift it over this way, swap these two pieces. And now we can put a divider in here. And we can fill this with epoxy. I don't think I want it that big. I think this would be better. Less epoxy, and just put another divider in down here, and we would save that much epoxy. I mean, that's quite a bit. Actually, what I think I want to do is do it this way, because this is going to be awesome. The reason I flipped it over is because you can see here it kind of angles itself this way naturally, and if we had it like this, there's more of a chance to have air bubbles trapped underneath. So if we go like this, probably less air bubbles. Another thing with this specific epoxy, we can only pour it 1.5 inches thick, and this thing is about 1 3/4 inch thick. So we're not gonna pour it all the way to the top. We're gonna actually leave about 1/4 inch around it, because we don't want to pour it thicker than recommended. It has to do with thermal reactions and heat. It'll overheat if you pour it too thick. And it takes about 7 to 14 days to cure, probably closer to the 14-day range because of how thick the pour is gonna be. So anyway, I'll go ahead and make this divider. It's just basically another one of these things. All right, so after a couple hours of stepping away from this, I came up with a solution. I don't know if you can tell, but it just doesn't look right. I'm gonna move the camera here so you can see what I mean. I'm sure it would be fine if I left it like this, but I think it would be better if it was more like this, right? Like a narrower channel here. All right, one more thing I want to do before I pour epoxy is I want to straighten out these cuts, because I just cut this on the bandsaw. And if I can run this over the joiner, I can make a perfectly straight flat line, and that'll prevent any gap here, which would fill with epoxy otherwise. So I can run this side through, basically all the edges I could run over the joiner. All right, so now to mix this stuff up, I I know there's a calculation you can do to figure out exactly how much epoxy you need to do a specific pour, but I'm not going to do that because of all the wormholes. It's going to be more than whatever number that is anyway because of how porous it is. So I'm going to do 3 full quarts plus 1.5 quart of hardener because it's 2 to 1. And I'm just going to mix them in this small bucket here. So we'll do 3 of these. And then 1.5 hardener. All right, now we just have to mix it for 4 or 5 minutes. And I was debating on what color to add to this, and I decided on blue. And this is a metallic color pigment. I'm actually going to do some of the color pigment. I'm going to do black and with blue sparkles. So this is the black pigment. Not 100% on how much I need. It's pretty thick. Oh yeah, it's real thick. All right, I don't want it to be solid black. I want it to be kind of translucent black. And we want some blue sparkles in there, of course. I'll add some blue. All right, so for next time I know, if I want to add blue sparkles or any kind of anything to black, it's probably not going to show up because I added the blue to this and it just completely disappeared. However, I did sprinkle some more blue on the top just to see what happens. I'm not going to pour it all the way to the top for a couple reasons. First reason is you're not supposed to pour it more than 1.5 inches thick. And 2, I want to be able to set something on top of here to keep it down. That's at about, I would say that's pretty close to 1.5 inches right there. But I have to let it settle and fill in all these voids. And yeah, I can see down here it's starting to fill in all the voids and everything. All right, I'm just going to take some shot bags and set them on top. This half was floating, so it still is floating. I'll just set that on there. And get something over here too. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and add some more epoxy. Again, like I said, we don't want to go to the very top, but we do want to make sure that we fill as many of these voids as possible. So I'll keep my eye on this. I'll keep adding as needed. And I am going to hit it with a torch. That'll bring a lot of these air bubbles, it'll pop a lot of these air bubbles here. And for now, I'm just going to wait because this stuff does take up to 2 weeks to cure. So I have plenty of time. So while pouring this, I realized something. I'm going to have to actually pour this all the way to the top because these voids go down deeper than sea level there. You see what I mean? I have to be able to fill everything in because when I sand this flat, I don't want pits in the top. So I'm going to have to find, I'm not going to be able to use these shot bags because they'll get destroyed. Probably use some more 4x4s or maybe some clamps. I'll figure out a clamping system here. And we pretty much have to fill this all the way up. All right, so here's the solution. I just took 2 cuts of wood to minimally touch the top because it's gonna get stuck there. I'm gonna have to cut that off later. But you can see the water level, the epoxy level is lowering as I took these pieces of 4x4 off. But when I put them back on, I don't know if you could see, but the epoxy level rises again. So now I'm just going to pretty much just pour epoxy straight in here to fill it up as much as possible, and that will fill in all the voids on top, and we should be good to go. All right, it's about 2 weeks later, and as you can see, I stacked up pretty much everything heavy that I could find. This on top is a 5-gallon bucket full of concrete. So I'll get rid of that, get all this stuff off here, then we can take a look at it. Okay, our 4x4s got epoxied to the top. And these pieces I already know are going to be completely glued down. Maybe just tap these with a hammer. Looks pretty good. All right, it's solid as a rock. Next thing we have to do is remove it from the mold, and then we can start processing it and sand this nice and flat and see what it actually looks like. It does look like there's some voids and stuff that didn't fill all the way, like this one right here. All right, so thinking about this for a few minutes here, there's a lot of deeper wormholes that I think I can fill with another layer of epoxy, just maybe another 1/4 inch. And I want to do that before I bust this all apart, because the mold is actually the hardest part of this whole thing. So I'm going to take advantage of where it's at. I can fill these holes, and then in a couple days we can bust the mold apart, flip it over, and then we can probably recreate the mold, or we'll see. We'll figure that out when we get to it. But we might have to re-pour on the backside too if there's more voids. All right, so I went ahead and mixed like a 1/2 cup total using the green sparkle stuff, and you can see that it did fill in all these voids on the top. This thing's gonna look really cool when I get sanding down into it, because it's gonna mix the black and the green together. And then also, once this is cured in a couple days, I'm gonna have to flip it over and get all the voids on the other side too. And then once I cut it in half, like once I book match it, there's probably gonna be more voids in the middle of that we're gonna have to fill again. So this is gonna be a multi-step process, but the final product should be really awesome. So now I'm just gonna keep my eyes on this, wait for these holes to fill in any more. If they do, I have a little bit more epoxy here I could just fill in. And yeah, for me, it's gonna be a couple days. For you, just a few seconds. All right, so I didn't screw this together or anything. I didn't spray any mold release on it. The only thing I have is that Tyvek tape that kind of prevents it from sticking. This piece though, I don't think I have any Tyvek on it. Yeah, it's completely solid there. This side, it should pop off. Yeah, it didn't stick at all. Cool. Let's take a look at the other side. I'm curious what it's gonna look like. Oh, that is pretty cool. And surprisingly, it's all filled in. Almost all filled in. I think I'm gonna have to run this through the sander, get a nice level surface, and maybe some voids will show up. All right, I got this thing cleaned up on the sander. I squared it up here on the table saw. And it looks like we got all the voids, or at least most of it. You can see a little tiny bit of areas where maybe the epoxy didn't get into. And there may still be wormholes and stuff on the inside where there was no opening to it. But overall, looks pretty cool. Let's get some denatured alcohol on it so we can really see how it looks. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. That is crazy. All those little details are going to really show up when this thing's finished as a guitar top. That's cool. I don't think it's long enough for a succubus, but it might be. Nope, not long enough. So that'll definitely fit. One, yeah. So I could pretty much just cut it down the middle like this. All right, here we go. And we can see the green came down a little bit in some areas. You can see the thin layer of green here. So just by looking at them, it looks like I can probably get one guitar top out of each one. So in other words, I'm gonna cut it down the middle like this to open it up like a book match. And then each one would be for a guitar top. If you don't know what a guitar top is, an exotic guitar top is this top piece that you see on the guitar. This back piece here, this is poplar, that's the body, and this camphor burl here is the top. We can add these up to our collection of billets. We have some pretty cool ones up here for future builds. Pretty soon, I'm not gonna process this yet. I'm not gonna book match it yet. I don't wanna do that yet for two reasons. One, because that epoxy isn't exactly dry yet. And also, if I cut it now, it's less stable for when I wanna use it. So it's better to cut it before I'm about to use it. That may or may not be true. It's just some personal voodoo of mine. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.